What is up, everybody? Welcome to the MMA Engine and welcome to Probability for UFC Las Vegas. We have a 13-fight card and, yeah, a pretty good card. Like I've been saying, like all of March, we're going to have some really good cards. We had UFC 285. We have UFC Las Vegas this week. We have UFC 286 next week. And then we close March with UFC San Antonio. So a lot to look forward to as a fight fan. And from a betting perspective as well, I'm here as always with Uncle WEEZY. WEEZY, what is up? Are you looking forward to some UFC Las Vegas?
I am, man. I'm getting neck deep into this pool for this card. I'm definitely throwing some units around, but we've got to talk about these data-driven looks at these props today, and particularly the over/under props. And you know, this is an interesting card. There's a lot of good stylistic matchups on this card. It looks like there's a lot of fairly priced lines, but the great thing about this show is that we don't have to just rely on the data, because when the data tells us that the line is priced fairly, we can just pivot over to what the stylistic look on the fight is too, and we're prepared to talk about both sides of that. And if we're prepared to talk about both sides of that, Brady, that's the best preparation for stacking cash tickets like flapjacks on Saturday, because it means that we're looking at all the angles, taking all the available information into account before we put our money down at the window. And that's the responsible way to go about doing things in this business. So let's be responsible. Y'all ready to be cautious? Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it. All right. Before we get started, guys, if you guys can please leave a like, subscribe here to the MMA Engine. Me and WEEZY typically go live every Monday. I had to go live on Tuesday. I was in Vegas. I had a 12-hour sleep last night, so I feel rejuvenated, feel recovered, and feel ready to go talking about some props. I was able to get some good research in today as well, so it's been a good day. But yeah, I do want to shout out the chat though. As always, we got Victor in the chat, first one in here. We got Papa Chuck. We got Philip. We got Silky B. We got Glenbot in the chat. We got Propaholic. Let's see who else we got. We got Daz in the chat. We got Bootsy hanging out with us. What is up, Bootsy? We got Jeff hanging out. We got Matthew hanging out. Juan, what is up, everybody? Please smash the like button. And then Matthew is liking the Batista and JJ Aldrich parlay. I don't care if it's juicy. Me and Weezy were talking about that same exact parlay last night on Statikers. I think that hits for you, Matthew Chalk. There you go. And I love the name Matthew Chalk. It's very fitting. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, but I like it, dude. All right, Weezy, I say we get into it here, and let's start with the first fight on the card. And we're going to go with Tyson Nam going against Bruno Silva. We have a flyweight fight here. All right. So we have do you have the over-unders by chance? Because I don't see them.
I've got an over-under 1.5 at minus 160, and I've got the under 1.5 at plus 130. Goodness. And then a fight doesn't go at minus 155, and I have fight goes at plus 125.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see that. I don't see the over-unders, though. I don't know if they took them off or what, but
they might have taken them off, but I put these lines in when I see them. So at least we know that a line opened up there at some point, and we can discuss it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like that over 1.5 then. We talked about this match a little bit last night, and, Tyson Nam, he's 39 years old, but what he is, he's very durable. He has solid takedown defense. He does hit really hard, but if it is set at 1.5, I kind of lean the over there. WEEZY, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think if that's where the line is, Brady, we can see that not only does the stylistic read, it really does pair up, right? Where we got a guy in Silva who's been very durable. He did get finished by Khalid Taha up a weight class on short notice. Taha landed a big shot, choked him out in the third round. But Taha pissed hot for goofballs in that fight.
Yes.
So, I mean, like, I don't, it's a short notice fight. It's up a weight class. Maybe it's understandable that he got finished there. But we know that Nam is very durable. 12 career losses. Last time he lost inside the distance was to Marlon Moraes in 2013. Long time ago, obviously. So both of these guys are very durable. And then if we look at the numbers, we see that 71%, almost 72% of flyweight fights that are scheduled for 3 rounds, they're going over 1.5 rounds, but we're only paying 61% here. In addition to that, Tyson Nam and Bruno Silva's over 1.5 numbers are actually 63.64%, so they're actually going over 1.5 at a greater rate than what we're paying on the implied probability of the line. The thing is that because 71% of fights go over 1.5 and only 63.64 combined percent have went over for Nam and Silva. They aren't going over 1.5 at the better rate than the division is, but still, there's a little bit of discount there. And because the line is priced what I would call pretty fairly here, I'm saying that the value is on the non-violent side. It's on those overs. And at minus 160 for an over 1.5, that's a playable line. And for me, it's even a parlayable line, Brady.
Yeah, that's all. Looks like I just checked Bet Online. They have the over 1.5 at minus 180. And then on DraftKings, they actually have it at 2.5, which the over 2.5 is plus money at plus 105. The under is minus 135. So,
all right. So say that again, Brady. The over 2.5 is what?
Plus 105.
Okay, and the under 2.5 is what?
Minus 135.
Minus 135. Yeah. So right now, if we're looking at this benchmark versus the implied probability line, 17% overpriced on the violence, 18% overpriced on the violence, and 15% overpriced on the violence. So the books are trying to make us bet non-violence here. But, if we go over here to just the general stats for this fight, Brady, and I'll bring you over here to the matchups, we're going to see that Bruno Gustavo da Silva has 2 UFC losses and none of them are finishes. And because of the no contest, it's not called a finish because that got overturned. And Tyson Nam as well. So we've got guys who have 11 UFC fights combined and 5 losses, and they've never been finished in those losses. So, going back here to see these, violent or the non-violence lines underpriced by that big in numbers, while we're also seeing that the combined performance of these guys is priced less than what the lines are priced at, that I would say that the value is there. And I'm liking that over 1.5 at minus 160. I don't have a pen in the room. I'm going to go grab my pen. So you talk to people here for a second because I got to be keeping track of what I like here.
Gotcha. And I'm keeping track of that same exact thing. It looks like Bet US has the over 1.5 at minus 175 right now. Bet Online minus 180. So yeah, I like that over as well. Dancing the over 1.5 minus 180. Bet Online. Propaholic on the over. What line did you get on that over? I think you got it like minus 160, which is wild. Goes to distance plus 120. I'm not really an over guy, but I am 1-on-1 on overs now. So I think my confidence has raised up a little bit after cashing my only over of the year last week. So maybe I'll be on this over 1.5 right here around minus 175, minus 180. I think it's a pretty solid look.
Agreed, man. I'm right there with you. I might be looking to throw something like that into the greasy 4-legger this week, but that's I like the stylistic read, and it's a little bit underpriced as well. So that's a good combination to have to make a bettable line.
Sounds good to me. All right. We'll move on to the next fight then. We have Victor Henry going against Tony Gravely. So we have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 minus 180. The under 2.5 plus 150. The fight goes to decision minus 170. The fight doesn't go to decision plus 140. Kind of an interesting one here from a time prop perspective where you have Tony Gravely, who he has some good finishing ability, has a ton of power on the feet, and he's been finished, I think, in just about all of his losses, maybe outside of one. I mean, the guy gets finished a ton, mostly by submission. And then you have Victor Henry, who not the best finisher in the world, but is just next level durable. Victor Henry has, I think, around like 30 fights, never been finished, which is very impressive. So one from a prop perspective where I don't have a ton of interest, but maybe the stats show something here, WEEZY. Anything sticking out?
Yeah, the stats show that it's another well-priced line. We can see here in the benchmark versus the implied probability line here that we're 7.41% underpriced here, 2.74% underpriced, 3% savings here. So they're shading us towards these violence lines. Unfortunately, I don't want to be on the violence side here, even though it's the plus money side, because Victor Henry is so durable. And Gravely has been finished a lot. But if I'm looking to get a better price, I know I can get a better price than plus 140 on Victor Henry inside the distance, because I don't think Gravely's finishing Henry. I would be very surprised. Henry really does appear to have a brick for a head. And he's fought good grapplers before, guys that are very good wrestlers and survived on the mat with them, guys like Kanahara, guys like Kyler Phillips, guys like Hani Barcelos, and the most recent fight with Assuncao. He can handle those kind of attacks. Even Lavrentiev, on the regional scene twice he's fought that Lavrentiev kid, who's going to be in the UFC soon, and who's a fantastic grappler. So I think if I'm playing the violent side, maybe consider a Victor Henry finish only prop. Bet Online had it priced at -200, which is kind of wild, right? Because Gravely's, this is a close to a pick'em fight. I mean, Henry's a small favorite, -135, -140. But to think that he's got most of the finishing equity here, that the stats bear that out and the tape bears that out as well. So if I'm on that violent side, I'm probably looking to just bet Henry inside the distance. And if I'm on those overs, they're not priced good enough for me to have really any interest here. Maybe the over 2.5 at -180 because it's underpriced about 2.38%, but the other ones are overpriced by 11% here, 7.5% here, and that's when we compare the implied probability of the line to the performance of the two fighters within these benchmarks. So, I'm not brought to the table by the non-violence betting lines, and the violence betting lines, I'm not worried about Victor Henry getting finished here, so I would just be betting Victor Henry inside the distance to get a fatter number.
Yeah, for me, it's a straight up pass. Want nothing to do with it. And it's this fight I'm just struggling with in general. Like, I feel like it's a really close fight. It all comes down to whether Henry's able to stuff these takedowns, keep it on the feet. If he does, he looks really good. If he doesn't, if he gets taken down and held down, Gravely can definitely win. I think it's a really close fight in general, though. But from a time prop perspective, just no interest in really laying chalk. I lean it going over and going to decision, but I just don't know if I can lay that chalk on it. So going to be a pass for me, but would lean the over there. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. Kind of an interesting one here. We have Ariana Lipsky going against JJ Aldrich. We have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 -205. The under 2.5 is +165. The fight goes to decision -190. The fight doesn't go to decision is +155. Weezy, what's sticking out to you on this one?
Yeah, it's another line where they're all priced pretty good according when you compare that benchmark to the implied probability here, line 13 of the spreadsheet, 1% underpriced, 1.5% overpriced, 9.5% overpriced here. But you look at the over, and you're paying juice at -350 here for it to go over 1.5. But it is a trifecta bet, so we do have a trifecta bet on this card. It's the -350 for the over 1.5 for the women's 125-pound division. 80% of fights are going over 1.5 rounds. The line is only priced at 77.8%, so that's about a 2.34% savings. And then if we look, all 11 of JJ Aldrich's fights have went over 1.5 rounds at the UFC level. 6 out of 8 of Lipsky's fights have went over 1.5. So that's almost 90% of their combined fights, and we're really only paying 78% here. So I'm thinking that the over 1.5 for this one could be a nice little parlay piece here. Maybe get it into a 2 or a 3 leg parlay. We can get this probability parlay to 2 out of the last 3 weeks here, and start to stack some flapjacks on hitting these parlays, because that looks like a pretty good piece to me. It's a trifecta bet too.
Yep, and I agree with it. I've heard a lot of takes that Aldrich is going to go out there and finish Lipsky. Lipsky has been finished quite a bit, so that's a little bit concerning, but Aldrich isn't really finishing anybody. Aldrich
She's finished nobody, and if you look at some of the wins, like how the hell did she not finish some of these women?
Yeah, so I agree, 110%. I think it's Aldrich going to win this fight. Aldrich is going to win this fight by decision, and the over at -350 I think is a great parlay piece, so I'm 100% with you.
Yep. It's not, we don't like weighing -350, but it's very rare that when you get a line that's that juiced, that it would still be underpriced according to all 3 metrics on the spreadsheet. That's rare. That's where we get, a parlay piece that, while we're not necessarily betting it straight, it is a plus EV bet even at that line. So those are the kind of lines that we do want to parlay to bring that price down. And so I think that's a great one for the PP this week.
Yep, I'm liking it. Just taking a look and seeing who Lipsky has been finished by. She got finished back in 2014 by Diana Firmino. That was a while ago. She got finished by Anthony Shevchenko. That one's a little scary.
Yes,
she got finished
very
by
scary. Yeah.
Yes. She got finished by Montana De La Rosa. And then she got finished by Priscilla Cachoeira. So no shame in a couple of those. But yeah, Aldrich isn't a finisher. So I think this fight does go over and probably to decision.
Yep, agreed. I think it's a decent spot there.
Sounds good. All right. So we'll move on to the next one. Then we have Mario Batista going against Guido Canetti. We have the over-under is set at 1.5 rounds. We got the over 1.5 rounds sitting at plus 125. The under 1.5 sitting at minus 155. The fight goes to decision plus 375. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 550. WEEZY, what is sticking out here?
Yeah, that fight doesn't go to decision is quite overpriced. Think about it. Only 49% of bantamweight fights finish inside the distance, but we're paying 84.62% of 35.54% overpayment, according to that benchmark for the division. The benchmark's 49%. So, I mean, just a horribly overpriced line. Even if you look at Batista and Canetti, when they're scheduled for 3 rounds in the UFC, only 68.75% of their combined fights have finished inside the distance here. So actually, fight goes to decision at plus 375 is kind of a plus EV bet here, because 31.25% of a 16-fight sample size at the UFC level, 31.25% of those fights have seen the full 15 minutes combined. And that's, it's 33% for Canetti. It's like 28% for Batista, but we're only paying 21% on the implied probability of the line, almost a 30% underpayment there when you consider that. So I think that the way to play this one, rather than laying that stupid juice of minus 550 or the minus 350 for the under 2.5, is even too much. 68% of their fights have went under 2.5. You're paying 77. So it leaves very little room for error there. If there's one line that's a little bit less underpriced on the violence side, it is the under 1.5, Brady. And that is 68% implied probability of their combined fights have went under 1.5 rounds. So check it out, right? The under 1.5 is 68.75%. 5 of 7 for Batista, 6 of 9 for Canetti. But it's the same for under 2.5, and it's the same for fight doesn't go to decision. So if you want to bet violence for this fight, that's fine. But why pay minus 550 when you could pay minus 155 and still the same rate applies at fight doesn't go to decision as it does for under 1.5? And that's 68.75% of their combined fights have finished under 1.5 rounds. So even though 30.67% of bantamweight fights finish under 1.5 rounds since 2013, and we're paying 60%, we're still underpaying when we compare those numbers to the 68.75%, which is the combined for these two guys. So under 1.5 at minus 155 is the bettable violence line. That would be the one, because fight doesn't start round 2. If we want to get a little bit cheekier, look at that. The implied probability goes down 25% there. So that means 25% of these fights are finishing in the first 2.5 minutes of the second round. So we want that under 1.5. That's the best violence bet. And I would say that the best bet on the non-violent side, Brady, well, check it out, right? If all their shit is ending under 1.5, why not then just bet the fight goes? Because if it goes over 1.5, we've seen all those fights for Batista and Canetti, they've never had a fight finish in the last 7.5 minutes of the 15 minutes. So if it goes over 1.5, then it's going to decision. So you could even play something if you wanted to be a big prick, Brady, and really lay that sack out on the table. okay, and you want to show everybody what big balls you got, you could bet the under 1.5 and the fight goes to decision, right? And then you could say, you could size the bets accordingly to that, where you could profit whether it ends under 1.5 or whether it goes all the way to decision. You're basically making a bet that it doesn't end in the last 7.5 minutes. Very interesting way to think about playing this fight. But there were good bets on both sides here. I like the under 1.5 at minus 155, and I also like the fight goes to decision as a long shot prop at plus 375.
Nice. Yeah, I'm definitely leaning violence, as most people are. So that under 1.5 at minus 155, I think makes a lot of sense to me. And I like how the numbers back it up a little bit, saying that if this fight probably does finish, it is under 1.5 rounds. So I think I'll be hopping on that. Going to check and see who has the best price out there. Looks like Bet Online right now, minus 155. So yeah, that is something I'm definitely interested in. Although it's tempting, I can't get to the fight goes to decision. I do not have that big of balls, WEEZY, to play that one, but that is a juicy prop there that sticks out.
Yeah, but that's the great thing about playing lines that are at plus 375 is you don't have to throw the full unit out there. No. You could throw a quarter unit down, and if you lose, you lost a quarter unit. But if you win, it would be the same thing as like if you bet the under 1.5, you got to bet 1.55 units to win 1 unit. Here on that fight goes to decision, and there's a data reason to take that bet. Your layout on the bet is less than 1/6 of what it is to make 1 unit on under 1.5. So that's always a good way to look at it. You don't have to throw the big bet out there. You can make it a small bet.
Yep, for sure. All right, I like it. Let's move on to the next fight. We have SD Dumas going against Josh Fremd. Got another chalky violence line here. We have the over-under set at 1.5. The over 1.5 minus 125. The under 1.5 minus 105. The fight goes to decision plus 275. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 350. Bookie's definitely thinking violence here. And if you watched either of these guys, you probably know why. Both these guys super, super dangerous. WEEZY, what's sticking out here?
Well, we got trifecta bets on the non-violence side here that really don't mean much, though, you guys. They don't mean much because we got a 2-fight sample size. 0 for Dumas because we don't count these contender series fights. And we've got a 2-fight sample size for Josh Fremd here. So, but yeah, we've got trifecta bets there. But like the stylistic read here, Brady, is that these guys are they both got a ton of power, man. Josh Fremd in the clinch is just absolutely deadly with his knees and his elbows there. He's absolutely hurting people. Very good at distance, as is Sedriques Dumas. Both of these guys, I wouldn't call either one of them like these really dangerous submission grapplers on the ground. I would say that they're both more dangerous on the feet here. But I don't really know where this fight is going to take place. Fremd could choose to wrestle. We've seen Dumas wrestle as well. This is a great fight, very exciting fight, big-time prospects. But in my opinion, we're overpaying for these lines just a little bit at these prices. And I don't know how durable Sedriques Dumas is at this level yet because we've never seen him lose. His only loss came on the amateur circuit to a good fighter who actually just went 4 rounds with Donovan Beard, the guy that got smoked on Dana White Contender Series by Bo Nickel. This guy Beard was the CFFC middleweight championship, and this guy that beat Dumas on the regional scene just lost going for the CFFC regional scene championship there. I think that these are 2 fantastic prospects, but I'm not overpaying for these violence lines at minus 350, minus 225, even the under 1.5 at minus 120, I think is a little bit too much here. But these trifecta bets on the other side, they just don't mean much because it's a 2-fight sample size. So we can't get too excited about that. There's a reason why the fight goes to decision is underpriced by 16% according to the benchmark. That reason, Brady, the tape on these guys. They're both savage finishers. So I think this is a good one to just stay away from. And you've got a chalky favorite in Dumas. You've got a more experienced, possibly more well-rounded fighter in Fremd, who's definitely fought the better level of competition thus far. He's more experienced on the regional scene and at the UFC level. So maybe take a look at that Fremd side on the money line. But these time props, I feel like we're missing a lot of information. And that is, what does Dumas look like at this level?
Agreed. The one I'm definitely staying away from. I think it's a great fight, a fun fight, but one from a betting perspective, I just can't get to. Whether it's a money line, whether it's a prop, I'm going to be sitting back and just watching this one. But yeah, it should be a really good fight.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
All right, so we'll keep moving on. Before we do so, we have over 50 of you hanging out here with us on the MMA Engine. If you guys could smash the like button. I agree with our guy Mushroom here saying smash a like and subscribe to this channel. Also, go subscribe to Mushroom's channel, Mushroom MMA. He's starting to do content. Shout out to Mushroom, big supporter of the MMA community. All right, I say we move on, though, to the next fight, and we have Raphael Assuncao going against Davey Grant. So we have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds, and the over 2.5 is currently minus 185. The under 2.5 plus 155. The fight goes to decision minus 155. The fight doesn't go to decision is plus 125. And I think we talked about this one a little bit last night on Stat Diggers, and we were talking about how if this fight does finish, it's probably Davey Grant getting that finish. I mean, the guy's super dangerous, hits very hard. He's the younger guy here. Assuncao now 40 years old. If this fight does finish, it kind of lean it towards being Davey Grant. So maybe look at the Davey Grant finish only, which is around minus 175 now. Davey Grant inside the distance, but from a time prop perspective, and one that's another one I kind of want to stay away from. Like laying minus 185 on an over is going to be kind of terrifying just because of the way Davey Grant fights. But we talked about it last night, how if Davey Grant fights the fight of Raphael Assuncao, this fight could be very boring and not a ton going on. So it all is going to come down to how Davey Grant approaches this fight. If he goes out there like a madman, throwing a ton of volume with a lot of power, it definitely could end. But if it goes out there and it's a staring contest, I could definitely see it going to decision with not much going on. So kind of a weird fight stylistically to break down, and a weird fight from a prop perspective. WEEZY, what's sticking out to you here?
Yeah, I kind of feel like you broke it down perfectly there. The violent one in this fight is Davey Grant. Assuncao his fights have only finished inside the distance 4 of 13 times in the UFC. And by watching his fights that this guy he's not a finisher. He hasn't gotten a finish in a very, very long time. And when he was getting those finishes, it was a different sport. It was the kind of sport where, you were either good at wrestling and grappling or striking. And you could just get a striker, take him down and submit him in 30 seconds. And that was a wrap. It's just not like that anymore. So, I kind of feel like the stylistic read here is Davey Grant going to be able to get the kind of fight that he wants? And, my read is no. My read is that, Assuncao is just a master of controlling the pace of fights. And he likes a slow-paced fight, with counter-striking. He likes to mix in the wrestling and accumulate some ground control time and get you thinking about that wrestling early in a way that's going to make you more reluctant to plant your feet and throw with power for worry about that, that your opponent's just going to duck under your punches and put your ass on the mat. And that's what Raphael did really well against Victor Henry. He found some really good entries on his takedowns. He accumulated some top control time. Victor Henry definitely not as powerful and as dangerous as Davey Grant is, but still, Davey Grant is a guy where if we were to look at his takedown defense at the UFC level, there we go. Davey Grant is showing 65% takedown defense, and he's being taken down more than one time. And he's got 12 takedowns. His opponents have 8, but he's barely out controlling his opponents. He's winning about 54% of the control time positions that he's in. And Assuncao is not that efficient either. But you got to remember, Assuncao's been fighting nothing but the top 5, top 10 of the division for the last 10 years. Davey Grant's not doing that. He's got, wins over guys like Smolka and Martin Day, who was 0-5 in the UFC. So we got to, maybe pump the brakes and realize that this is a step up in competition for Davey Grant, and that Davey's probably not going to get the kind of fight that he performs best in. So my thought here, Brady, is that like in the Aldrich fight, the minus 350 for the over 1.5 here, we're overpaying by about 8.5% here, according to the benchmark, which is on par with what we're overpaying for the over 2.5 and for the fight goes to decision, right? But look, when we compare the fighter performances, we see that we're overpaying by 4.25% for the fight goes to decision. We're underpaying by 0.3% for the over 2.5, but we're underpaying by about 5% for that over 1.5. 83% of these guys combined 23 UFC fights, which have been scheduled for 3 rounds, have went over 1.5 rounds. So that's about a 5% break with over what we're paying on the line here. So potentially that could be a parlay piece as well. I think it's the best priced of the non-violence lines. And if you're looking at betting those violence lines, my suggestion to you would just be to bet Davey Grant, to get a finish because Assuncao can't even finish a banana at this point in his career.
Yep, and the one spot I would be looking at would be that finish only. Going to see where DraftKings and FanDuel open it up at, but it looks like it opened up on BetOnline, I think like minus 160. So yeah, I don't mind that because I don't see Assuncao finishing Davey Grant. On the flip side, I could see Davey Grant finishing Assuncao at this point. So, but other than that, just no interest in this fight. All right, let us move on and then to the next fight. We have Carl Williams going against Lucas Brzeski. We have the over-under set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 sitting at minus 115. Under 2.5, minus 115. The fight goes to decision, minus 105. The fight doesn't go to decision is minus 125. It's about a pick 'em, and I think that's about right. I do lean towards the over just because of the way I see this fight playing out is Carl Williams going out there within the first 30 seconds, taking down Brzeski and controlling him for the rest of the round. I see the second round starting, Carl Williams shooting a takedown within the first 30 seconds, taking down Brzeski, end of the round, and then I think it happens in the third round again. Like Carl Williams, really good wrestler, really good control. Like once he takes you down, you're not getting back up. I don't think Brzeski has the best cardio, but I didn't see much finishing ability out of Carl Williams. I think he goes out there, grinds this fight, and wins by decision. So I'd be taking a look at Williams by decision or like the decision only because Brzeski's not winning a decision in this matchup. But from a time prop perspective, I'm just staying away from this one. WEEZY, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Yeah, it's hard to say because we just, it's Williams making his UFC debut. We got a 1 fight sample size out of Brzeski. So, we really can't rely much on the data here, but I think you broke it down perfectly. If you watch this kid Williams fight, he's a wrestler, man, and he's a very, very good one. And he goes to it over and over and over again. He's got the conditioning to push the wrestling heavy game plan for the full 15 minutes. And while he's wrestling and wrestling successfully, and not only just doing that, Brady, but doing it against like legit wrestlers, dudes with wrestling backgrounds. He took a Penn State wrestler at heavyweight. He took that fight on less than 2 weeks' notice. Carl Williams had never fought at heavyweight before. He took a guy that was in the Penn State wrestling room for 4 years in college and threw him around like a fucking rag doll and controlled him for over 10 minutes of that fight, Brady. This is a guy who did that, like I said, on short notice, up a weight class against a guy who had been wrestling for his entire life. Brzeski is not, Lawson as a wrestler. He's a good grappler. He's a good wrestler. He's got good volume on the feet, but he doesn't have a ton of power, And, if you watch the regional scene footage on Brzeski, he's pretty hittable on the feet. And he's been out grappled by like old men like Mihail Kita, was like 40 years old when he fought Brzeski, and he won a lot of the grappling positions in that fight. Very concerning. So I think you broke it down beautifully, Brady. I think that this is going to be a wrestling match. I see it going over 2.5 rounds. We're overpaying by about 10%, 11.9%, 13.27%. But I got to tell you, man, 44% of their fights go over 1.5 rounds outside the UFC. But I think that these guys are fairly well matched. So I think maybe the over 1.5 in this spot at minus 200 could be a potential parlay piece for this fight.
Yep, I agree. And I know DraftKings does those like same game parlays. I wouldn't mind doing like the Carl Williams parlayed with the over 1.5 rounds as well to get that price tag down a bit. But yeah, I do lean Williams, and I do lean Williams by decision. Wish he has shown some finishing ability, because man, Brzeski does slow down a ton, and we know that this guy's been on stuff PDs before, and now he's clearly not by the way he's been looking. Maybe like a Carl Williams late finish if Brzeski is completely gassed out. So maybe like a Williams round 3 or decision as well. So those are kind of the spots I'll be looking at this week.
Yep, absolutely, man. And like Glenbot said, are these fights in the small cage? Because that should favor big grapplers. And yeah, you said, Brady, that according to the information that you got, even though this isn't at the Apex, it is in Vegas and it's supposed to be in the small cage. Am I right about that?
I saw it on Twitter and somebody was quoting Dan Tom. So if that's right, then it's going to be in the small cage. Although it's not in the Apex, it's at the some theater, right? The what's it called?
Yeah, it's the Virgin Hotel, I believe, or something like that.
Yes, so I think it is the small cage, but that's what I heard on Twitter. I'm sure we'll get more confirmation on that later. But as far as I'm concerned, it's small cage, which I do like.
Yep, me too, man. So I'm going to put that as a potential parlay piece there, the plus 200.
Perfect. All right. So we'll keep moving on. Then we have, we got the pleasure man, Anton Turkalj going against Vitor Petrino. So this one's weird because these books are all over the place. So on Bet Online, they have the over under set at 1.5 rounds, the over 1.5 minus 188, the under 1.5 plus 158. On Bet Online, they have the fight goes to decision plus 190, the fight doesn't go minus 230. That actually opened up minus 400 on Bet Online for that fight doesn't go. But on other books, you have like the fight doesn't go at like minus 138. I see a minus 165. I see a minus 155. And I did take the minus 155 here. I think both guys very dangerous on the feet. Petrino probably has more power on the feet, but Turkalj has power in his own right. And what I like about Turkalj is the guy can grapple. The guy can wrestle, get the fight down to the mat. He can get it to dominant positions, has a sneaky submission game as well. And Petrino tends to gas out. So I think Petrino is going to be live to potentially knock out Turkalj. But if Turkalj gets his fight down to the mat, I think he's going to have finishing ability down there. So I like the violence here. I don't like it on Bet Online because they're extremely overpriced compared to everybody else. But, I see like a minus 138 for a violence prop in this matchup, and I would love to get that line. That is on Betway right there. But yeah, I do lean violence on this one. WEEZY, what is sticking out in terms of the analytics?
Dude, it's so hard to talk about this one because, we've only got one UFC fight once again combined for these two guys, Petrino and Turkalj. And Petrino hasn't fought a bunch of competition that we can really feel like we know what this kid's going to be about at this level. Turkalj has. Turkalj's 11-3 as an amateur, and then he's almost undefeated as a professional. I mean, he lost to Jailton Almeida, but he's had a 100% finish rate before his Dana White Contender Series fight. So both of these guys are clearly very dangerous. And if you have one of these books that's opening the under 2.5 at minus 120, I don't see how you can not bet that. These guys are both clearly very violent dudes. Of course, there's a stylistic component to this fight where Anton Turkalj could get takedown after takedown. He could pull a Carl Williams here, kind of just get a body lock from the back and hold it for 15 minutes and just completely drown this dude, but not allow him to land any strikes. So I would definitely favor those unders for this one, but it's just a very odd fight. It's one that I don't feel like we can be too confident about our stylistic read because these guys are both pretty new to the UFC. And in addition to that, we don't have enough data on either one of these guys to get a really a good data-driven read on this fight either. So, but we are seeing a big divergence in how different books are pricing these lines. And if you have access to these books that are underpricing these violence lines, that's clearly the way to go here. But other than that, I would caution anybody for this fight to take it easy, because I feel like we're missing a lot of information on both of these guys and how they're going to perform at this level. But I would lean the violence side here, but I'm not sure which of these lines are real and where these things are going to meet in the middle.
Yep, fair enough. Papa Chuck talking about the under 2.5, and that minus 125 is still out there. I think it's on BetUS. I think it's also on Bet365. But yeah, those lines are still out there. So I would get on them now because I don't think they'll be there much longer, personally.
Yeah, absolutely. Take those lines. To think that you're getting an under 2.5 priced at 54.5%, but the benchmark is 58.3%. And then if you look outside of the UFC, Petrino, 6 of 7 fights finish under 2.5. Turkalj, 7 of 8. That's 86% of their combined 3-round fights outside of the UFC finish under 2.5 rounds, and you're only paying 54% on the implied probability of the line. You just can't ignore that. If you have access to that line, you've got to hit it, and you've got to hit it hard. Hit it bigger than what you would normally hit it for, because the only possible reaction is that that line gets more expensive. And then what you're probably going to be able to do is get the over 2.5 later on in the week, maybe even at plus 150, to where you can remove all the risk from the equation and either hedge out or, just lock in a guaranteed profit there.
Yep, absolutely. I like it, and I am on that fight doesn't go minus 155. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. Then we have Said Nurmagomedov going against Jonathan Martinez. We have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is minus 175. The under 2.5 plus 145. The fight goes to decision minus 130. The fight doesn't go to decision plus 120. WEEZY, what is sticking out on this one here?
Oh boy. Okay, 120 there, huh? Yeah. So you want to talk about some lines that are perfectly priced. This is it, Brady. We've got an 18 fight sample size for these two guys, 7 for Nurmagomedov, 11 for Johnny Martinez. Fight doesn't go to decision, 45%. Benchmarks 49%, combined performance 44%. There's a maximum of about a 4.5% divergence between any of those numbers. That's what we call a pretty much perfectly priced line. Same thing here. 1.92% underpriced, 1.93% overpriced, and then 3.85. It looks like the under at plus 200, the under 1.5 is the worst priced line, and that the over 1.5 at minus 275 is the one that makes the most sense according to the combined performances of these two lads. So we've got 83.33% of their combined 18 fights have finished over 1.5 rounds, and we're only paying 73% here. And even though we're getting a 10% break, we're only underpriced or overpriced, I should say, by 4% according to the benchmark here, which is 73.33 and 69.33. So a 4% difference. So, yeah, I think that the best priced line here would be the over 1.5 for this fight. But 3 of Nurmagomedov's fights have finished under 1.5 rounds. But with Martinez, you got an 11 fight sample size, and the dude's never had a fight to finish under 1.5 rounds. So minus 275 could be another potential parlay piece here at over 1.5 rounds.
Yep, sounds good. I don't have a ton of interest in this one personally, but yeah, should be another pretty good fight there. All right, we'll move on. We got 4 fights left. We got Ricardo Ramos going against Austin Lingo. We have the over-under is set at 2.5 rounds. The over 2.5 is sitting at minus 115. And then the under 2.5 is sitting at minus 115. So straight pick them there. We got the fight goes to decision plus 100. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 130. Yeah, so I did have some interest in the under when it was plus money, but that line is gone now. And I was telling you last night how I just keep losing money on Austin Lingo unders, because you take a look at this guy outside the UFC. He's blowing through guys, knocking them out. And then he fights guys like Jacob Kilburn and can't finish him. Couldn't finish Luis Saldana. So I'm not sure he finishes Ricardo Ramos here. And then on the flip side, I can definitely see Ramos getting a finish, especially if he gets the fight down to the mat. But yeah, nothing really sticking out here, especially now that the line's completely gone on that under. WEEZY, what are you liking here?
Got a trifecta here, Brady, on the fight goes to decision at plus 100, priced at 50%, but 56.62% of featherweight fights do go to decision. 61.54%, or 8 of their 13 combined UFC fights, have went to decision. So we got a 6.6% underpricing here, an 11.5% underpricing here, which I feel is one of the more important metrics once you get like a 10-fight sample size or more. And then 5% here. And in addition to that, you got a guy in Lingo who's never once had a fight finish inside the distance at the UFC level. So he's shown some durability, and he's shown the ability that, maybe the finishing skills that he had on the regional scene aren't translating up at this level. And, with Ramos, you got a pretty durable guy there as well. So, yeah, fight goes to decision, plus 100 is a trifecta bet. And I don't like to ignore those trifecta bets, Brady.
Fair enough. I'm going to ignore it personally, but I get it. I get it from a stat perspective, because I really do think Ramos, if he gets the fight down to the mat, it's going to be some serious trouble for Lingo. But if not, if this fight is striking for 15 minutes, I think it does go to distance.
Yeah, and it could, but that's the thing. The data gives us our statistical read, and it tells us what lines are overpriced and underpriced. But then, if you're not watching tape, you really kind of are doing yourself a disservice, because you can miss things that you see on tape that might lead you to completely go the other way. So yeah, but I still do think that we don't like to ignore those lines. Minus 115 for the over 2.5, plus 100 for the fight goes to decision. Those are the two best price lines according to the template right now on that non-violence side, and they're definitely the most underpriced lines that are available right now.
Yep, nothing wrong with that. And I think they could even get better. It looks like money's coming in on the violence, so maybe be able to wait and get a better price on those overs.
Yep, agreed. And and that's the thing. Lingo is a guy that I think people feel like, Ramos could absolutely finish this dude, and that's reflected in the line at minus 350 on the Ramos money line. So yeah, I mean, there's stylistic reasons to like those violence lines.
Absolutely. All right, let's go. Okay, so we have 3 fights left. We have one fight that we were supposed to watch a couple weeks ago. We got Nikita Krylov going against Ryan Spann. I had 5 units total on violence. I had the under 1.5. I had the under 3.5 in a parlay, and I had the fight doesn't go to decision in a parlay. It came out to 5 units total. All the other legs to the parlays hit, so I was counting on that main event. But this is interesting. So it got rebooked because Nikita Krylov was I think sick or something. Something happened to Krylov on fight day during like the start of the main card. And then now they're pushing it back a couple weeks later, and they're taking this and making it a catch weight at 215 pounds. My read really hasn't changed. I like violence here still. I like the under 1.5 still. I think I got it though at like minus 115, minus 125 around there. It's now sitting at minus 145. That is on Bet Online. The over 1.5 plus 115. A bet that, a spot that kind of stuck out maybe was the fight won't start round 2 at plus 120 on DraftKings, just because Ryan Spann has not seen the second round in, I think, like 6 fights. And I think this fight's going to be an absolute car crash. The fight doesn't go to decision, minus 400. The fight goes to decision, plus 300. Yeah, I lean violence here again. I lean that under 1.5 rounds, but it has moved a little bit since it opened up at minus 130. WEEZY, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, it's obviously a chalky line. Minus 400 for fight doesn't go to decision. 76% of their combined UFC fights have not went to decision, so it's only overpriced by about 4% there. Overpriced by 20% though, according to the benchmark. It's not screaming bet me. I think, and the thing is too, 60% of their fights have finished under 1.5 and 76 have finished inside the distance, right? There are 3 rounds. So a 16% divergence there. But if you look at the percent of the divergence in the line between fight doesn't go to decision and under 1.5, it's about 21%. So, maybe the under 1.5 is probably the best way to bet this. But, frankly, this was something that I was looking at plus 100, minus 105 when they were originally scheduled to fight. So I don't see why you would go rush into the window for a minus 143 right here, Brady, when you could have got it way cheaper last time. And now this time, this fight isn't scheduled for 5 rounds anymore. It's actually scheduled for 3. So, I mean, I could see Krylov coming in and there being a higher likelihood that Krylov comes in with the game plan of, well, maybe I wasn't able to wrestle for 5 rounds against Spann, but for 3 rounds, maybe I can wrestle him for 3 rounds and win a decision that way if I just don't want to be on the feet. And like Ryan Spann's got like canned hams for fists. So you really don't want to stand in front of that dude. So maybe he does want to try to take him down and get the grappling game going. So, yeah, minus 143 is a little bit overpriced. And I'm telling you, man, I don't have the sack to bet the over 1.5 Brady at plus 110. Only 36% of their combined UFC fights have went over 1.5 rounds. And you're paying 48% for the line. So that's not bettable. Yeah, I mean, these lines are pretty fairly priced, but I would think that the only bettable line here is minus 143 for the under 1.5, and I'm not going to get there.
Yeah, looks like the line's kind of gone. I should have hit that under 1.5 at minus 130 when it opened up, but waited and now that's gone. Do you know what the percent of the fights of these two have finished in the first round?
Yeah, it's the fight doesn't start round 2 is right over here. It's column F on the spreadsheet, Brady, and you can see that 8 of 17 for Krylov haven't started round 2, and 5 of 8 for Spann. So when you add that up, it's 13 of 25, 52% of their combined fights have not started round 2. So if you could get, plus 105 or better for that bet, you'd be paying a fair price, and the more plus money you get an even fairer price.
Well, I can get plus 120 for it.
See, at plus 120, that's 7.48% overpriced according to the benchmark. But look what the other lines are overpriced: 13.4, 16.77, and 20.19. And then you look over here at this analytic in row 20, Brady, on the spreadsheet. That's the two fighters' combined performances at the UFC level versus the implied probability of the line. Underpriced by 6.55% for fight doesn't start round 2. Underpriced by 1.15% for the under 1.5. Underpriced by 1% for the under 2.5. Overpriced by 4% for the fight doesn't go. So fight doesn't start round 2 plus 120. Easily the best and most underpriced line of the violence lines that are available so far.
Yeah, I think I'll probably hit that on DraftKings Sportsbook. Don't hate that.
Oh, God.
You're good. All right. So we shall move on to the co-main event. We got Alexander Romanov going against Alexander Volkov. We have the over-under is set at 1.5 rounds. The over 1.5 is minus 180. The under 1.5 plus 150. The fight goes to decision plus 230. The fight doesn't go to decision minus 290. WEEZY, what is sticking out on this co-main event? And I think you're muted.
Sorry, I was just hacking up a lung.
Oh, you're
good. Yeah, definitely very overpriced on the fight. Doesn't go to decision here. A negative trifecta at negative 12, negative 16, and negative 3%. The under 2.5. Another negative trifecta bet at minus 177, which is where I saw it priced. The under 1.5 at plus 150. Underpriced by 3.5% according to the benchmark, but way overpriced according to these guys' performance at the UFC level. The fight goes to decision at plus 230 is a trifecta bet with over 20% in savings combined when you add up those three benchmark comparisons that we make there. So that's an interesting way to look at it, is that maybe Volkov does get taken down, but he survives down there. And if he does get taken down in those first 2 rounds, even if Romanov can't wrestle in the third, he might have taken enough out of Volkov that Volkov can't knock him out in the third and the fight goes to decision. It's definitely underpriced because we see it here according to the benchmark, Brady, at plus 230. It's underpriced by 7.65%, but here we've got 2 overpriced lines when we look at the over 2.5 and the over 1.5. We still see underpricings here and here and here and here, but I would say that best line and the biggest plus money number at plus 230 is an interesting way to look at this fight, and it's a very, very underpriced line right now.
Sounds good. It makes sense. I mean, I would rather bet the fight goes at plus 230 than the fight doesn't go at minus 290. I'll tell you that. but I already have a bet on this fight. I think I'm just going to stick to that. But yeah, because I could see Romanov finishing Volkov in round 1. But if he doesn't, I kind of lean this going the distance. But I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air on whether this fight goes or doesn't go. But like I said, I'm not laying minus 290 on the fight doesn't go here.
Yeah, plus 230 is a good looking number there, and I might take a little bit of that, because the price is definitely right, and I think the stylistic read is definitely there because we know that Romanov is going to wrestle. There's no way, even if the dude's been working on his hands, that he's going to pick a 6'7" opponent with an over 80-inch reach to be like, let me try out my boxing against this guy. No, hell no. You know that he's been wrestling in every fight, and that's not going to stop today.
Absolutely. All right, so we will move on to the last fight. Then we got the main event. Petr Yan going against Merab Dvalishvili. We have a 5-round fight here. The fight goes to decision, minus 190. The fight doesn't go to decision, is plus 155. WEEZY, what is sticking out on this main event?
Yeah, this is a 5-round fight. So let's look at these 5-round analytics because we're going to find a little bit of a divergence in the way that these fights are priced right now. We got a bantamweight 5-round fight. 65.63 or 21 of 32 bantamweight fights that have been scheduled for 5 rounds since the year 2013 have finished inside the distance. So that means that we should be paying somewhere around minus 190, minus 195 for any 5-round bantamweight fight. We are paying plus 155. So we're talking about 66% of these fights have finished inside the distance. We're paying 39.22%. That's a 26% underpricing according to a benchmark that doesn't have the best sample size. But I mean, if you look at these 5-round analytics, Brady, even flyweights are finishing at 63%. They're 65%. Featherweight, it's 58%. But then you go to lightweight, it jumps up to 70, 50, 59, 69, and 80%. But yeah, bantamweight's at 65%. It goes to show you that, we're getting a very big underpricing here. And then you talk about how many of their fights have finished inside the distance. It's only 23%. But those are fights that are scheduled for 3 rounds. Now, the fights that are scheduled for 5 rounds are a little bit different, Petr Yan has got serious power on the feet, great boxing, but he's a bit of a slow starter. And Merab Dvalishvili doesn't let boxers box because he's going to wrestle you, take you down over and over and over again, and use that conditioning to push a wrestling-heavy game plan for the full 15 minutes, which we've seen him do over and over and over again at this level. We can count on him to do that. But this is a 5-round fight. We've never seen Merab go 5 before. And we have to wonder, is that pace pushable for 25 minutes? Because if it's not, and if he does get tired and he gets reversed and he winds up underneath Petr Yan, how does he look, Merab Dvalishvili, when he's on the bottom? That's a question we have to ask ourselves because we look right here, Brady, right? Over this 144-minute sample size for Merab at the UFC level, he's winning almost 90% of his control time positions, out-controlling his opponents 8.48 to 1, 43% control time for, 5% control time allowed. But early in his career, we saw him lose to Frankie Saenz and to who's the other guy who beat him?
Simone?
Ricky Simon, right?
Yeah.
So really good wrestlers there, both of those guys. Found ways to get some top control time of their own and win minutes there. So the question is what does Dvalishvili look like in a 5-round fight? Are we going to see a different Merab Dvalishvili, a little more conservative Merab Dvalishvili, having to worry about maybe saving that gas tank to be able to, pick his spots in order to wrestle in every single round? But he doesn't want to stay on the feet very long with Petr Yan. And the problem with that is Petr Yan spends 74% of his fights distance striking, and he's out controlling his opponent 16.5% to 9.5%. And he shows 90% takedown defense. So it's going to be a very tough road to hoe here for Merab Dvalishvili. And if you're of the opinion, like a lot of people are, that Petr Yan's going to win this fight, well, then he's going to find minutes on the feet to land big shots, and he's probably going to find opportunities to get into top control against Merab, land some of that nasty ground and pound that we saw him land against Jose Aldo, and potentially get him out of there. So I feel like just like last week, Brady, where we had that huge divergence between the line for the main event fight doesn't go to decision, plus 100, when 80% of heavyweight fights finish inside the distance. So we saw a 30% divergence there. And we said, why are we not betting the fight doesn't go to decision here? It makes no sense analytics-wise that it should be priced that cheap. Well, it's the same thing here. We've got a benchmark that is 65%, and we're paying 39%. So we're getting a 25% divergence in the long-term benchmark of how 135-pound 5-round fights finish to compare to what the price we're paying here, which is only 40%. So, yeah, the fight doesn't go to decision at plus 155 is the bet for this fight.
I like it, and I think it finishes well. My analysis lines up with the numbers there, so that is something I might be adding on. But I did already bet Petr Yan inside the distance at like plus 240, so I might be adding on to the fight doesn't go to decision as well.
And that's a great read, dude, because I just don't see Dvalishvili finishing Petr Yan, right? So if that doesn't happen, maybe if you like the plus 155 for fight doesn't go, and you're like me of the mind that says no way Merab finishes this dude, then grab Petr Yan inside the distance at plus 240, because if he does win this fight and it does finish inside the distance, that is such, you're talking about a 25% implied probability or something like that, 26, 27, compared to that, 65% finishing benchmark for these fights.
Yep, for sure. All right. So I like it, Weezy. Gonna quickly go through the spots that stuck out to me, and then you can do the same. So for me, the spots that I like, Bruno Silva, Tyson Nam over 1.5 rounds, around minus 175, minus 185. Don't mind the Aldrich Lipsky over 1.5 rounds, minus 350 as a parlay piece. The problem I'm coming out with is what to parlay that with. So maybe you can help me out there. Mario Batista, Guido Canetti under 1.5 rounds, minus 155 sticks out a tad. The Davey Grant finish only around minus 175. And then I'm going to be taking a look at the Krylov Spann fight doesn't start round 3. Plus 120. And then we just talked about the main event fight doesn't go decision around plus 155. Those are kind of the spots that are sticking out to me. Weezy, what spots are you liking this week?
Yeah, so for potential parlay pieces this week, I don't mind the Nam Silva over 1.5. I like the Lipsky Aldrich over 1.5. I like the Lucas Brzeski Carl Williams over 1.5 at minus 200. I think that's cheeky. The Saeed Nurmagomedov versus Martinez over 1.5 at minus 275 wasn't bad. But I kind of feel like if we could get Brzeski Williams over 1.5 with the Lipsky Aldrich over 1.5 close to even money, that's not a bad look.
Yeah, it comes out close to even money. It's about minus 108.
Minus 108. Why don't we do that one? And then there's a bunch of other plus money spots, right? And if you like that Nam Silva over 1.5, you can add that in. If you like the Batista Canetti under 1.5, you can add that in. If you like the Saeed Martinez over 1.5 at minus 275, you can add that in. But also, Ramos Lingo fight goes to decision plus 100. That's a trifecta bet. Romanov Volkov fight goes to decision at plus 230. That's a trifecta bet. And even, what was it? There was like a plus 350 that was it the Krylov Spann? No, it's definitely not a trifecta bet. It was the
Canetti Batista fight goes plus 375, I think.
Oh yeah, that's not a trifecta bet, but still, that's like an interesting look. It's a big plus money number where the data is telling you you've got a little bit better, like a 10% better chance, but that's not for the faint of heart, obviously. But yeah, those are the spots that I like. I think if we do the probability parlay and we do 2 over 1.5s, Lipsky Aldrich over 1.5. Brzeski Williams over 1.5 minus 106 for those two. I like that.
I like that. That is something I might be looking at myself here. I'm going to see what Yeah, so that might be something I look at myself as maybe making it like a tracked bet, because I really like that. Because Williams, he doesn't give you an opportunity to knock you out, right, or to knock him out.
He just doesn't.
Um,
And I mean, like he got submitted by Jason Butcher on the regional scene via triangle choke, but I looked into Jason Butcher's record. Dude's got 14 wins, 100% finish rate. 8 of those wins are by submission. And of those 8 submissions, 6 were by triangle choke. And he had like something like 4 triangles in a row. So it's like, you know, it's coming, but he's so slick in setting it up that there's really not much you can do about it. That's the only pro loss for Carl Williams thus far, and it came against the guy who's 14-5 in his career with 100% finish rate.
Cool. Yep, for sure. Sounds good to me, Weezy. All right, we did it. We went through 13 fights. Weezy, let the people know where they can find you, what you have going on throughout the rest of the week. Just the tip tonight, since it is Tuesday.
Yeah, it's 3.5 hours from now. Just the tip with Uncle Weezy. Going to break down all 13 of these fights. I'll give you guys my track bets, and there are quite a few of them this week. And we're going to finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. Wednesday night, going to be going live 10 o'clock Central Time for Ask Weezy. And then also tomorrow, Brady, with you and Monk and Gordo, we're going to be doing the DFS show on Pub Sports Radio. And I'm going to be looking to give out a nice little prize picks parlay this week, because there's actually some stuff that's jumping out to me there. So maybe even looking to build some of these templates to get the prize picks content going as well, because there's been a lot of things sticking out as well. And those prize picks entries that we've been giving out on the DFS show on Pub Sports Radio, Brady, they have been hitting crazy. Like we're like 4 for 4 every damn week, it feels like.
I know it's been a nice hot streak for some prize picks. I love it. All right, guys. Thank you for hanging out. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna be doing a main event prediction just after this, about to record it, and then that'll be out tonight. And then tomorrow I'll be getting out my full card breakdown prediction video. I need to look into just a couple more matchups a little bit more. But yeah, a little behind because of Vegas, and I had to go into hibernation for 12 hours, but I'm feeling pretty good now. Appreciate you all. Thank you for hanging out, and best of luck for UFC Las Vegas. It should be a very good card. See you guys later.